shaking there. This is Lori from Lori's Little Bit of Craftin'. Late Night Lori's coming to you at 11:18 p.m. Wednesday, June 25th. And I'm a independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in the United States coming to you from Wisconsin. We were in Kenosha tonight, and there is a lot of fog, which we haven't seen fog for a bit. So, well, let me turn down my volume on my other device. Thought I did that already. So, oh, and now I'm not in focus either. Let's see if we can fix that. Hopefully that looks a little bit better. So, yeah, we've had family in from out of town, so we've been getting together with them, and tonight we went out to dinner. Because that's what Italian families do. They eat or plan a meal or clean up after a meal or start cooking the next meal. So that's what we did. So tonight I'm going to, again, try to make it pretty quick. I'm going to use almost all the last of my pieces that have been left over from the last couple of nights. I have these two, but I think I'm just going to file them in my folders for these products and use them some other time, not necessarily in this series. I have enjoyed working with this set though, but I think it might be time for me to move on. I don't want you guys to get bored. So this is the one I did last night. Had a little bit of technical difficulty ending the video last night. I think my battery power had gone so low and then it was just kind of like stuck. So it took a while for it to clear, and I only was able to make that video public probably on our drive home. I've been checking it all day long and it just wasn't appearing and wasn't appearing. So this is the card we did, and I was hoping I would not have to recreate that video. But here's the inside and here's the front. I kind of took some inspiration from a sample that Stampin' Up! Has in the online store. I modified it. Their sample was a tag. I turned it into a card. And this may very well be my favorite card so far using this set that I've done. So let's move on a little bit. These are the colors I'm going to use tonight. I've got Night of Navy, Darling Duckling, Azure Afternoon, and I thought I would kind of go with some bright stuff. This is the sailboat with the in color, the 2025 to 2027 in color paper that I die cut the top of there. And the back is just this die cut base essentially for the sailboat. And then this is with the cloud cover, the same, it's designer series paper from the in color set. So I'm going to use those. I kind of have in mind how I think this is going to turn out, but who knows for sure. All right. So let me get those out of the way so we have some room to work. I've got 3 stamps pulled out. So it's going to be a pretty easy card. My base is 8.5 by 5.5. It's scored at 4 1/4. So I always take a full sheet of cardstock. I do my score first, and then I do the cut so that I only have to score once. We'll see if I can keep from coughing tonight. I felt like a tickle was coming on. So then this piece, I'm going to cut and I'm going to trim down and make that a little layer under here to give just a pop of color. So a normal layer for a 4 1/4 by 5.5, excuse me, would be 4 by 5 1/4. So I'm just going to pop it up 1/8 inch because I want a nice, just a thin layer around there. And then from 5.5, a normal layer would be 5 1/4. So I'm going to go up 1/8 inch from there. So rather than say 5 3/8, sometimes it's just easier to go to the quarter and bump it up that extra. So it all depends on your perspective, I suppose, and what works for you. So that should give me a nice tight border around my top layer. So that's just a nice border. We'll see that Night of Navy just around the edges there. There's a little bit of fraying here. I think I may need to turn or change my cutting blade on there. All right, and then this piece, we're going to go down to the normal layer size. So that's going to be 4 inches, and we'll go down to 5 1/4. There we go, 5 1/4, and we'll see how this looks. I really liked how these colors looked together. So on the color coach, it does show Azure Afternoon with Night of Navy and Smoky Slate, but I thought that might be a little drab. And Daffodil Delight is one of the colors that is kind of like a coordinating or a complementary color. So I figured Darling Duckling would be a good substitute for that. So I'm using those 3, not necessarily the color coach combination, but certainly a combination that I think will work. And I think that's all I need the trimmer for. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and glue this first layer down so I can get rid of my loose pieces. I like to attach them as soon as I can so I don't lose anything, especially if I've got something with dimensionals, and if I end up taking backings off and then it sticks to something that I didn't intend it to stick to, then I end up wasting time trying to find my little pieces. So I'm going to shift this just a little bit, which is the beauty of having the liquid glue, because I can shift ever so slightly and get it centered more how I want it. I'm just going a little subtle change, so that will be close enough, I think. All right, and then we're going to put that aside. We are going to do a little stamping on this. Now these little sailboats I got ready ahead of time, of course, because I had done sailboats in each of the in colors. So that is this die here, which gives us just this piece and then the mast pole and the sail that attached to that. And that's a nice base for the piece that actually has the sails. And that's what I cut out of the Designer Series paper. So I already had those glued together. Now one of the other cards that I did, I made several of the base of the sailboat, and I glued them together to give it a little bit more stability. So you can certainly decide if you want to do that, because this little part of the pole is pretty fragile and it bends pretty easily. So you want to kind of be careful with those. All right, I'm just going to set those off to the side. And then I also die cut some clouds. And what I'm going to do with these is kind of layer them so the cloud looks a little puffy. And I don't know if I want to put dimensionals on one layer and glue one flat on my layer, or if I just want to stack them. We'll see when we go. So I'm not going to glue those on just yet. But we are going to create the illusion of water on here. So I'm going to go ahead and take the Azure Afternoon and start just stamping some water. And what I do with this, because of how it's shaped, I'm going to turn it over, and then it kind of randomizes some of the texture in the water. Okay. So we can stamp off to a side, and that kind of changes up the design a little bit. And then I turn the stamp like 180 degrees, and we'll just shift it around a little bit more. And I'm going to go just about halfway up, I think. Just to get that little bit of wave action going on. I think I'll just end that one here. And we'll put a little over here as well. Yeah, I think that'll do it. Because then what we're going to do is we're going to put a sailboat here and a sailboat here. That's going to kind of look like our water. So let me go ahead and clean that off. I like to stamp them off before I put them in my chamois. But my chamois is well loved. All right. So let's go ahead and move those out of the way. The next thing I want to do to kind of break up the water from the sky, I didn't want to have some stark changes in color because this is such a vibrant color. I thought, well, if I put like white or something on there or even the yellow, it's just really in your face. So I thought what I would do is take some Night of Navy with my blending brush. And when I pick up ink, I always work some of it off so that I don't have a real harsh bit of ink when I start blending it onto my paper. And then I usually go in from a side or the bottom and start adding some color. Now with your blending brush, I would recommend that you either put your finger on the head of the brush or your thumb on the head of the brush so you can control the pressure, because the pressure that you're putting on there either makes it really light or makes it darker. Okay? And then I think it would be fun too at some point to just make some of these blending brush like designs and make that into like a card layer. I might do that some other time. So you can see what I'm doing here is just adding a little bit of color in the Night of Navy so it's a little different shade. And we're just going to make that into a little bit darker water. And I've got it, you probably can't see it on the camera, but I've got a little darker strand here, and then it goes a little lighter, and I'm going to make it a little darker down on the bottom again, just to kind of give it some depth. All right. So let's go ahead and close the Night of Navy, because I think I'm done with that. All right. So this is going to go here like this, and I think just the yellow with the blues is just really nautical-ish to me. So we're going to go ahead and put these on here. Now I'm going to put the sails, I'll probably have like a dimensional under part of the sail and then glue the rest of it on. So I kind of want these staggered so it kind of looks maybe we're having a sailboat race. And then I'm going to put some seagulls on here too, because I really love how this seagull image looks. So realistic. I think they did a really nice design on that rather than just having like two arcs to create your seagull. So we're going to do that in Azure Afternoon. But I also want to put a sentiment on here. Now the sentiment that I picked is "You deserve the best." All right. It's a straight stamp though. With the photopolymer, the nice thing is you can shape them, all right? They're flexible. So while it's designed as a straight stamp, I'm curving it because I want to make it kind of go up and around my sailboat, all right? So we're gonna go this way and just kind of curve it here just to give it a little something different, all right? So "You deserve the best" is kind of going to go around my little sailboat. All right. So there we go. I think that'll work. And we're going to do that in Azure Afternoon. Now I'm tapping this on my ink really lightly. And I'm wondering, I'm going to do this on the back. I just want to see how dark it is. Or if I want to do Night of Navy. So I can do it on the back since nobody's going to see it. And I think the Night of Navy is going to be better. So let's get those out of the way. Let's re-ink this. And what I was saying was, usually I will put my stamp down and tap my ink on the stamp very lightly. You don't need to have a lot of pressure. But if you do tap it from the top, tap it lightly, because if you go squish, squish, you're going to get ink all pressed into your stamp, and then you might not have a very good image. All right. So let's go ahead and lay these kind of where I think they're going to end up, so that I can put this right where I think it needs to be. And then these other pieces, because they're not attached yet, they're not interfering with my block or anything. And I can just kind of put them where it fits best. Very nice, very nice. All right, so let's go ahead now and do a little dimensional on those. And then we'll do glue on the rest of it. I'm going to close the Azure Afternoon because I think I'm done with that one. And then we'll put the seagulls on in a minute. We'll get that one ready. We'll get this one ready. Now we're going to put some glue on here. Maybe we're going to put some glue on here. There we go. And you don't need a lot. If you are one of those people who is not a fan of the liquid glue because you think it's too messy, that's probably an indication that you're using too much glue. So a little bit of glue goes a long way. And like my granddaughter used to say, dot, 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 not a lot. All right. So I was careful with this base here because mine is slightly bent. So I was pretty careful with that while I was gluing it and setting it down. Although the card I did last night, I accidentally broke it apart and I glued it on and it was fine. You can't even really see where that happened. Hopefully I'm working. I think I'm a little down off my camera space a little bit. Sorry about that. I'll try to shift up a little bit here. I think I moved my glass mat when I was cleaning a little bit. So this one we'll just put down here. So you can see those little dimensionals just add a little bit of something to that sail. All right. And then we're going to do these clouds. So I think I'm just going to go ahead and glue them down first, the first layer, and then we'll see how we want it to look. And I'm not going to glue this layer down yet because I still want to stamp the seagulls. And hopefully I won't mess them up, but you never know, it could happen. So I think we'll just start by gluing this one on. And again, you don't need a lot of glue. But I'm going to make that one so it kind of goes in the little curvy there with my sentiment. And then let's go ahead and glue this one down. And then we'll decide what to do with the next ones. So we could just glue them, creating some depth this way, or I could put them up on dimensionals. And I think the dimensionals is the way to go. Just because we can. And then it'll give it the same kind of level of depth as those sails. Okay. And then I don't know which, I think I'm going to do the smaller cloud on top, which means I will want to probably take this dimensional off. I wasn't thinking about that ahead of time, but I don't want to have double layers there. So let's go ahead and put some dimensionals on this piece then. Okay. So this card you can see has gone together pretty quickly. Mostly because I got some of the stuff done ahead of time. Now I have just a little bit of smudge there. Let me get my silicone mat because I want to set this down and see if I can kind of camouflage that smudge with a little bit of blue around the edge of my card, or my cloud rather. So let me do the same thing with this one so that it looks like I meant it to be that way. That one got really blue. That'll be all right. It'll be fine. All right, so let's go ahead and put this on here then. And we're going to let that other part of the cloud peek out from behind so it looks nice and puffy. And then here I'm just going to put just a little touch of glue so it won't flip up on its own. And this one I kind of like that way too, with the bottom showing the dimension. So I think that looks pretty good actually. All right, so let's decide where we're going to put our seagulls. And I'm going to do those in the Night of Navy also. So I think we'll have a seagull over here and a seagull over here. And I think 2 is probably enough. Sometimes when you keep putting more and more and more, it just becomes too much. And I think that is just enough. And then this will probably become another birthday card because that seems to be like the most frequently needed occasion. So this is ready to glue on here now. And I am glad we did the Night of Navy over the Azure Afternoon for the sentiment because it does stand out a little bit more. And it kind of pulls in the color then of that card base. So then what I'll do on the inside of this is I will cut another layer with that Darling Duckling. And then I will layer on a piece of basic white so that we can put our happy birthday or whatever on the inside. So the other thing is, do we need any embellishments? Or maybe, because Wink Stella makes everything better, let's put some Wink Stella in our water. And maybe a little bit on our clouds. And that will give us, you won't be able to see it probably too much on the video. Maybe you can. But there's just a little bit of shimmer there. All right. So the only other thing that I'm seeing here is that this boat doesn't have any texture on it like this boat. There's an insert stamp to go in there. This one doesn't have that. So I'm just leaving it as is. And that's our card for tonight. So here's our last night card. Here's the night before card. And I did a few others a bit back, but I think these were the most recent ones using the sunrise sailing. And I like them all. I think this one I like because of that really bright pop of the Darling Duckling. This one was just a cute idea with the waves and that die. And this one was just a simple with that faux layer. If you haven't watched those videos, take a look at my video library and do a replay. Let me know what you think. I will go ahead and post a picture of this on my Facebook page as well, which is Lori's Little Bit of Crafting. If you are inspired to make something like this or to case it if you want, feel free to make a comment on my Facebook page corresponding to the picture that you're casing. Add a picture of your creation. I love to see what you're making. And it's just fun to share ideas. So you might do something a little bit different from something else, and then we share them and you can make a whole new idea. So thanks for stopping in. That's all I have for you tonight. Until next time, happy crafting.